Hello, welcome back. My name is Justin Gambrill. I'm glad that you are back with me for another lesson today. We are continuing our summer working with minor chords and minor keys. In our first video, we learned the most basic backup, which was just playing 3 strings in the chord that include the 1st and the 5th. So use your 6th string, your 4th string, and your 3rd string. If you don't have that concept quite down yet, I highly recommend going back to that video, because what we're going to get into today is going to build upon that, just ever so slightly. Because we play bluegrass music, and in bluegrass music, there's a certain rhythm that we like to have. Dobro is not always known for it. We see it more from the mandolin, but that's chopping. And chopping, we can do 2 different ways. I've explained in other videos. We have chopping kind of like a banjo, where you're doing this nice little chop. And then you have something that mimics a little more of a mandolin, where you're going. Now, minor chords, as we discussed in our last video, is a problem because of the steel. When you've got your thirds that need to be 1 step flat compared to your 1st and your 5th, your beautiful major chords just don't fit anymore. And so when we're chopping, you probably noticed even there, I was getting a lot more of the strings. But what we do in our minor chords is that we can combine what I taught in that last lesson of using just our 6th, 4th, and 3rd and combining it to both of those chop patterns. And I will go over each in this video, and then I will show an example that showcases both of those within a song. So the first one I'll go over is going to be the banjo chop. So in the banjo chop, we are going to take all 3 of our fingers. You're going to give each one its own string. So thumb gets the 6th string. I'm going to be on the E chord, which would be the 9th fret right now, for example, because if we're playing the key of G, we'll be using an E minor chord. And so you take 6th string with the thumb, 4th string with our index finger, and then 3rd string with our middle finger. And when we use this as a nice this is not, I normally go with the other one more than this. So this is a little less comfortable for me. It's not my go-to, but it is very simple. We're going to make sure that our steel is down on at least your lower 4 strings. And then the moment that you pluck, you're not going to leave it ringing out, but you're going to lift up to mute. And by lift up, I mean lifting up the steel, making sure that your fingers that are behind it are down solid on the strings so that you can mute everything. And then it's just that quick up from it. And this works because we're using that same chopping pattern, but we're just making sure that we're avoiding the 2 B strings, because that's what makes it sound nice and pretty. And by doing that, we get to avoid the thirds while also getting that nice chop. Now, that one's easy because by using our 3 fingers, we get to choose what strings we want. Feel free, I highly recommend pause the video right now, spend a little bit of time working on that, getting it under your fingers and making it comfortable, maybe move around to some different chords as you go through. Once you're done with that, we're going to move on to the more mandolin chop. Now the mandolin chop is a little more awkward because we're taking that full steel and we are running our hand all the way across. It can often feel much less controlled at first, this full movement of but I'm running across all 6 strings. I'm hitting a very clear major chord, and while I am controlled, it feels a lot less controlled and is harder to get to be controlled because of the amount of movement you're doing. And so what we'll end up doing is we want to limit the strings that we are touching. So going back to our E chord here, I'm going to take my steel and I'm going to put it down on just the 3rd and the 4th strings. So just those middle 2. And then I'm going to make sure that my fingers that are behind are going to be muting all the other strings. So if I was to just run across the whole thing, you're only hearing those middle 2 strings. While my thumb pick is running across all of them, those other 4, are all muted. You're not getting any sound from it. And so now, if I'm covering it like that and picking it up right after I chop, you get this nice. It makes it punchier, makes it more in your face, and it works the same way of, you're only hitting the notes that fit both the major and the minor chords. This one is a little bit more difficult to really get under your hands because we're using our steel to only hit 2 of the 6 strings and not the low 2 or the high 2, but the middle 2. And that's going to take a little work to figure out how it's supposed to look, and you can very well, if you're able to get your head down to look at how it ends up looking. But a little bit of a slant allows you to get both. So those are the 2 different kinds of chops. And I've taught you both of those just on their own to say, here's how we do a banjo chop, here's how we do a mandolin chop. That's what I just call them for short to relate them to the kinds of instruments I'm mimicking. And we can use both of them for minor chords. So now I'm going to use an example from Poor Wayfaring Stranger. I'm only going to go through verses. I'm not going to move to the chorus that gets out of it. But I'm going to go one time through following the banjo chop and one time through following the mandolin chop. Gives you a chance to hear what they both sound like, at least in the context of this song. Decide what you think sounds better, what you like, and it always depends on the song. But let's take a moment now and listen to how that one sounds. I am a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through this land of woe, and there's no sickness, toil, no danger in that bright world to which I go. I know dark clouds will gather around me. I know my way is rough and steep, but beauty's fields lie just beyond me, where souls redeem their vigil keep. So that's our example for this one. You'll probably be able to notice, and I know I noticed it when I was listening back, that you can tell my comfortability between the 2, even as I had said it earlier in this video. There were a couple of things I did that made it fancier. I slid between chords. Some of that was just natural in my mind and sometimes hard to not just slide between chords. I know I was saying we need to keep it short because it's a chop, but even between those short chops, I often like to slide to where I'm going next. And then, like I've talked about in previous videos on chopping, we can always make them a little fancier. I kept the banjo chop pretty simple, but you can move from a simple to a more fun sounding part. And on the mandolin chop, I always just have a natural tendency to do that, not just to go, but to play some extra chords with it. And so you don't have to do those. And as I always recommend, you got to figure out what fits the song. We need to pick wisely. And often, we're probably not going to be chopping tons on these songs. The mandolin is going to be doing it. And sometimes with our minor songs, they're not always quite as in your face. And in that case, I might even be open to saying the banjo should be picking up that chop if there's no mandolin playing over the dobro, because their chop will probably fit a little better, and the other stuff that the dobro can do under these minor keys will probably sound nice. But in a song like that, that's a minor key, something a little more laid back probably sounds good. There's other songs that are in your face that go to just a minor chord really quick, and those, the mandolin chop might sound better. And I'm not going to sit here and just categorize every single bluegrass song as a minor chord and tell you which one to do. That's for you to decide. And if you've got a song that you're curious what I would do, put a comment on this video. Say, hey, I'm playing this song, and I wonder which chopping style would you recommend doing on this song? And I can tell you my thoughts. But even then, there's a way that I would play that song that I'd want to do mandolin chop. There's a way that I would play that song that I would want to do the banjo chop. Even just stylistically, how we play songs in a given moment, a given day, I might feel differently between the two. And Poor Wayfaring Stranger is a song that you can play a variety of different ways. And so that's kind of the gist of this. It builds from what we learned in the last video on just playing minor chords, but helps us to just have a fuller repertoire of the backups that we're going to play. And so, as always, if you got more questions about what it means to play dobro, or particularly now about minor chords and chopping over them, put that comment down below. Please subscribe if you like this video, like it. Follow along if you want to hear more. And always pick wisely. Go out there, have fun, keep on practicing, everyone. Thanks for watching.